Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt a heaviness in your body that you couldn't explain? A fear that didn't match your life, a pattern you swore you'd never repeat, and yet somehow there it is again? Have you ever caught yourself reacting in a way that felt older than you, like the emotion didn't even start with you, like it belonged to someone else? Maybe your mother, maybe her mother, maybe a woman whose name you'll never know. What if things you struggle with today, the anxiety, the people pleasing, the overfunctioning, the emotional brace, aren't personal flaws, but inherited survival strategies? What if your body is carrying a story your mind was never told? And what if you are the first woman in your entire lineage with the safety, the language, and the support to finally break the cycle? Today, we're going to talk about the invisible thread that runs from mother to daughter. The thread that carries trauma, yes, but also resilience, strength, and the possibility of profound healing. So take a breath, settle in, you're safe here, and let's begin. Welcome back to the You Are the Best podcast. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Today, we're going to talk about something that lives in the quiet corners of families, something that shapes us long before we have the language for it, something that passes from mother to daughter like an invisible thread. This is the hidden story of intergenerational trauma. And I want you to know before we go anywhere that this is not an episode about blame. This is an episode about understanding, about compassion, about context, and ultimately about liberation. Because when you understand the story you were born into, you finally get to choose how it ends. I want to start with something personal, not one single story, but a blend of women I've worked with, the women I've loved and the women who've shaped me. So picture this, a woman in her mid-40s. She's capable, competent, the one everyone leans on. She's the emotional glue of her family. She's the one who remembers birthdays, who smooths over conflict, who anticipates needs before anyone speaks them. But inside, she's exhausted, not just tired in her bones, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. She tells me, I don't know why I'm like this. I don't know why I can't relax. I don't know why I'm always anxious that something's going to happen. And then she says the line I hear over and over again, I think I've been carrying things that aren't mine. And she's right, because so many of us, especially women, inherit emotional patterns the same way we inherit eye colour or cheekbones. We inherit hypervigilance, people-pleasing, perfectionism, emotional suppression, fear of conflict, overfunctioning, self-sacrifice, the belief that love must be earned. We inherit the unspoken rules of our mother's nervous system, not because she failed, but because she survived. And survival has a way of echoing. Now let's ground this in science. Intergenerational trauma is the transmission of trauma from one generation to the next, not just through stories or behaviours, but through biology, attachment, and the emotional climate of a family. Researchers describe it as the biological embedding of lived experience, meaning what your mother lived through didn't just shape her personality, it shaped her. It shaped her physiology, her stress responses, her emotional regulation, her sense of safety. And those patterns didn't just disappear when you were born. They became the environment you developed inside. This isn't metaphorical. This is measurable. For example, studies on descendants of Holocaust survivors, Indigenous communities, African American families, and children of war survivors show altered cortisol patterns, heightened stress reactivity, increased vulnerability to anxiety and depression, changes in brain regions related to fear and emotional regulation, even when the children never experienced the original trauma. This is not about weakness. This is about biology doing its best to protect you. If she lived in fear, your nervous system learned vigilance. If she lived in chaos, your nervous system learned to anticipate. If she lived in emotional scarcity, your nervous system learned to overgive. Not because she wanted that for you, but because she didn't get to heal before you arrived. Now let's talk about attachment, the emotional blueprint we inherit before we can speak. Attachment isn't about how much your mother loved you. Most mothers love fiercely. Attachment is about how safe her nervous system felt while she was loving you. If your mother was overwhelmed, unsupported, depressed, anxious, or carrying her own unprocessed trauma, she may have struggled to respond consistently or sensitively, even if she adored you. And that shapes your internal working model. You ask, am I safe? Am I worthy? Will someone come when I need them? Do I have to earn love? Do I have to be perfect to be accepted? Is it safer to stay quiet? Is it safer to stay small? These questions become the silent architecture of your adult relationships. And here's the thing, your mother didn't invent these patterns. She inherited them too. This is the part that breaks my heart every time. When you look back at your mother with this lens, you start to see her fear wasn't hers. Her silence wasn't hers. Her anger wasn't hers. Her emotional distance wasn't hers. Her self-sacrifice wasn't hers. She was carrying the emotional DNA of the woman who came before her. Women who survived war, women who survived poverty, who survived violence, who survived colonization, women who survived marriages they couldn't leave, women who survived systems designed to break them. And they did survive. But survival has a cost, and that cost is often passed down. Let me share a story, a part personal, part universal story. A woman sits across from me, tears in her eyes, and she says, I used to think my mother was cold. I used to think she didn't care. But now I see she was terrified. She was overwhelmed. She was alone. She was doing everything she could with what she had. And then she says, I'm the first woman in my family who has the space to feel. I'm the first woman who isn't in survival mode. And I'm the first woman who gets to heal. And that's when it hits her. She is the cycle breaker. Not because she's stronger, not because she's better, but because she finally has the safety her mother never had. And maybe that's you too. Maybe you're the first woman in your lineage with language for trauma, access to therapy, access to emotional tools, nervous system awareness, financial autonomy, boundaries, choice. Maybe you're the first woman who gets to ask, what ends with me? What begins with me? So let's talk epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of how experiences influence gene expression. So think of your genes like a piano. The keys don't change, but the music does. Trauma doesn't rewrite your DNA. It changes which genes get turned up or turned down, especially genes related to stress regulation, emotional processing, inflammation in your body, and fear responses. And here's the wild part. These epigenetic changes can be passed down, not as destiny, but as sensitivity. You may have inherited a nervous system that is more alert, more reactive, more attuned to danger. Not because you're dramatic or anxious, but because your lineage survived something. Your body is not betraying you. Your body is remembering. And healing is not about erasing that memory. It's about teaching your body a new ending. Perimenopause is a truth serum. The hormonal shifts reduce emotional suppression. The brain becomes more sensitive to unresolved stress. Old coping mechanisms stop working. Identity questions rise to the surface. The body says, we can't carry this anymore. This is not a breakdown, this is a breakthrough. This is your body saying, it's time, it's safe now. We can heal this. We don't have to pass this on. You are not falling apart. You are finally coming home to yourself. Now let's explore the thread that runs from mother to daughter, the emotional DNA that shapes us, the cultural forces that mold us, and the unspoken rules we inherit without even agreeing to them. This is where the story becomes personal, and this is where the story becomes universal as well as ancestral. There is something uniquely powerful about the mother-daughter relationship. It's intimate, it's layered, it's tender, it can be complicated. And it's often the place where intergenerational trauma is most visible. Not because mothers are the source of trauma, but because mothers are the carriers of emotional memory. Let me say that again. Mothers are not the cause. Mothers are the carriers. They carry the emotional patterns of the women who came before them. They carry the survival strategies of their lineage. They carry the unspoken rules of their culture. They carry the wounds they never had the space, support, or safety to heal. And daughters, especially sensitive, intuitive daughters, absorb these patterns like a second skin. Not because they're weak, but because they're wired for connection. A daughter's nervous system is shaped inside her mother's nervous system. Her earliest sense of safety comes from her mother's emotional world. Her earliest understanding of love comes from how her mother loved and how her mother was loved. This is why so many women say, I feel like I'm living my mother's life. I react the way she reacted. I carry her fears. I repeat her patterns. Sometimes I even say the words that she said. I'm trying to heal things she never got to heal. And they're right. Because the mother-daughter thread is not just emotional, it's biological, it's neurological, it's relational, and it's ancestral. Every family has unspoken rules, emotional contracts that no one signs but everyone follows. Rules like don't upset your mother, don't talk about feelings, don't ask for help, don't rest, don't be too loud, don't be too soft, don't be too much, don't be a burden, don't need anything. And daughters learn these rules early. They learn to read the room. They learn to anticipate. They learn to shrink. They learn to soothe. They learn to disappear. They learn to overfunction. They learn to become the emotional adult in the room, even when they're still a child. And here's the heartbreaking part. These rules didn't start with your mother. She learnt them too. She learnt them from her mother, and her mother learnt them from hers. And somewhere along the line, a woman learnt these rules because she had to, because breaking them meant danger. This is how trauma becomes tradition. Not because anyone wants it to, but because no one had the safety to question it until now, until you. Let me share another story. Now, this is a blend of many women's truths. A woman tells me, I became my mother's mother. She says, I was the one who comforted her. I was the one who calmed her down. I was the one who managed her moods. I was the one who made sure she didn't fall apart. And then she pauses and whispers, and no one ever comforted me. This is when a child becomes the emotional caretaker of the parent. It's one of the most common ways intergenerational trauma shows up in daughters. And it creates adults who overgive, overfunction, overexplain, overapologize, overanticipate, overachieve, overcare, overextend, over everything. Because they've learnt early, my feelings don't matter, my feelings are too much. I must be the strong one, I must be the calm one, I must be the responsible one. I must be the one who holds everything together. And then midlife arrives and the body says, no more. Not because you're failing, but because you're healing. Intergenerational trauma doesn't just live in families. It lives in cultures. It lives in communities. It lives in histories. It lives in colonization, war, displacement, racism, poverty, migration, gendered violence, religious oppression, political instability, stolen children, stolen land, stolen identity. These collective human traumas shape entire generations, and they show up in daughters as hypervigilance, distrust, emotional suppression, perfectionism, self-silencing, chronic stress, fear of authority, fear of failure, fear of visibility, even fear of rest. Because rest was dangerous. Visibility was dangerous. Softness was dangerous. Expression was dangerous. Need was dangerous. And so women learn to survive by becoming strong, silent, invisible, resilient, self-sufficient, emotionally contained, always prepared, always bracing. These are not personality traits. These are survival strategies, and they make perfect sense in context. But here's the thing. You are living in a different context. Your life is not your grandmother's life. Your world is not your mother's world. Your nervous system is still playing by the rules that no longer apply. And that's why healing feels confusing. Your body's trying to update its operating system. Every lineage has one woman who sees the pattern clearly for the first time. She's the one who feels deeply. She's the one who questions. She's the one who breaks the silence. She's the one who refuses to repeat what hurt her. She's the one who says, "This ends with me," not out of anger, but out of love, not out of rebellion, but out of awakening, not because she thinks she's better, but because she finally has the safety her mother never had. You might be that woman. You might be the first woman in your lineage with emotional language, access to therapy, nervous system awareness, financial autonomy, boundaries, choice, community, support, time, space, and safety. You might be the first woman who gets to heal instead of survive. And that's not a burden, that's a privilege, a sacred one. Now I want to offer you a reframe, a truth. Your mother was not the beginning of the wound. She was the continuation of a story she didn't choose. She was shaped by forces she didn't understand. She was carrying burdens she never asked for. She was doing the best she could with the tools she had, tools that were often blunt, broken, or incomplete. And you are holding tools she never had access to. You are not your mother, but you are the one who gets to heal her story, not by fixing her, not by rescuing her, not by carrying her pain, but by choosing differently, by loving differently, by relating differently, by parenting differently, by speaking differently, by resting differently, and by living differently. You are the living proof that healing is possible. We've traveled through the story, we've traveled through the science, we've traveled through the lineage. Now we arrive at the part that matters the most. What do you do with this? How do you heal what didn't start with you? How do you break a cycle that's older than your memory? How do you become the woman your lineage needed? This act is about integration. It's about choice. It's about becoming the cycle breaker, not in theory, but in practice. Healing intergenerational trauma doesn't start with doing, it starts with seeing. Seeing the pattern, seeing the origin, seeing the impact, seeing the truth. Awareness is not passive. Awareness is an act of rebellion. Because when you see clearly, you stop participating unconsciously. You stop repeating what hurt you. You stop inheriting what isn't yours. You stop carrying what was never meant for you. Awareness is the moment you say, I see the wound, I see the pattern, I see the cost, and I choose differently. This is the beginning of liberation. Reparenting is not about blaming your mother. It's about becoming the mother your younger self needed. It's about giving yourself the safety you didn't have, the softness you weren't allowed, the validation you never received, the boundaries you were never taught, the rest you were never permitted, the love you had to earn. Reparenting sounds like a big concept, but in practice, it's simple. It's asking yourself, what would I say to a child who felt this way? What would I offer her? What would I protect her from? What would I teach her? What would I never let her believe about herself? And then giving that to yourself consistently, compassionately, imperfectly. Reparenting is not a one-time event. It's a relationship, a lifelong one, and you deserve it. Intergenerational trauma lives in the nervous system, so healing must include the nervous system. This is not just mindset work, this is body work. Your body learned to brace, your body learned to anticipate, your body learned to shrink, your body learned to silence, your body learned to survive. And now your body must learn to feel safe. This is where practices like breath work, somatic grounding, stretching, humming, slow movement, meditation, and rest becomes medicine. Not because they're trendy, but because they teach your body a new story. A story where safety is possible. A story where softness is allowed, where rest is not dangerous, where you don't have to be on guard, where you can finally exhale. Your body's been waiting for this. If you grew up with inconsistent, overwhelmed, or emotionally unavailable caregiving, your attachment system learned to protect you. Maybe you became avoidant, saying things like, I don't need anyone. Maybe you became anxious, saying things like, please don't leave me. Or maybe you became disorganized on some subconscious level, thinking, I want closeness, but it feels unsafe. None of these are flaws. They are adaptations. And the beautiful thing about attachment is this: it can be healed at any age through therapy, secure relationships, friendships that feel safe, boundaries, emotional honesty, self-soothing, co-regulation, choosing partners who meet you, and choosing yourself when they can't. Attachment repair is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming safe inside yourself and with others. It's about learning. I can be loved without performing. I can be supported without earning it. I can be held without shrinking. I can be seen without fear. I can be me without losing connection. This is the heart of healing. For women whose lineages carry cultural trauma like colonization, racism, displacement, migration, stolen land, stolen children, healing is not just personal, it's collective, it's ancestral, it's cultural. And healing may look like reconnecting with your heritage, learning your language, honouring your ancestors, reclaiming traditions, understanding your history, renaming the systems that harmed your people, refusing to internalise shame, celebrating your identity, finding community, telling the truth. Cultural trauma disconnects people from themselves. Cultural healing reconnects them. It restores pride. It restores belonging. It restores dignity. It restores identity. And daughters often lead this restoration because daughters are the ones who ask, where did we come from? What was taken from us? What do we reclaim? What do we honour? What do we heal? You are not just healing yourself, you're healing your lineage. I want to guide you through a gentle reflection, something you can close your eyes for if you feel comfortable. I'll just ask you to take a breath and ask yourself, what did my mother carry that wasn't hers? Let the images come. Let the memories come. Let the compassion come. What did I learn about safety? About love? About worthiness? About being a woman? What patterns am I ready to release? Not with force, but with softness. What ends with me? And now, what begins with me? What new story do you want your body to learn? What new story do you want your children or the people you love to inherit? Let the answers rise gently. You don't need to force clarity, it will come. You could pause this podcast now if you like and write it all down or say it out loud if you can. Let me share one more story, a blend of many women's truths. A woman in her 50s says, and then one day I realised I spent my whole life trying to be the daughter my mother needed. And then one day I realised I'd never been the woman I needed. She said, I thought healing meant fixing my mother, but healing meant choosing myself. She didn't abandon her mother. She didn't reject her. She didn't blame her. She simply stopped abandoning herself. And that changed everything. Her relationships deepened, her body relaxed, her anxiety erased, her identity expanded, and her lineage shifted. Because when one woman heals, every woman before her and every woman after her feels it. Healing is not selfish. Healing is generational. As we close this episode, I want to speak directly to you. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are the first woman in your lineage with the safety, the language, and the support to heal. You are the cycle breaker. You are the pattern interrupter. You are the emotional alchemist. And you are the one who turns pain into wisdom. You are the one who turns survival into softness. You are the one who turns generational wounds into generational strength. Your healing is not just for you. It is for your mother. It is for her mother. It is for the women who came before you, and it is for the women who will come after you. You are the turning point in your lineage, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for choosing yourself. Thank you for choosing healing, and thank you for choosing a new story. This is the You Are the Best podcast, and you are truly the best.